Hey y'all, and welcome to Recovered, Interviews with Alcoholics, a podcast from the Magdalen House, a recovery community for alcoholism. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization based in Dallas, Texas, and known affectionately by many as Maggies. Every first and third Wednesday, we bring you a new release from one of our 3 podcast series. In the Recovered series, a recovered alcoholic active in our community shares experiences from their recovery journey as they work the 12 steps to achieve sobriety and sustain recovery, with your host, me, Bryn Hansen, recovered alcoholic and the community program manager here at the Magdalen House. Whether you're in recovery yourself, contemplating giving it a try, curious about sobriety, or supporting someone who is, we are so glad that you're here. Thanks for listening. Hey y'all, welcome to Recovered Interviews with Alcoholics. I'm Bryn Hansen, and I'm your host of this podcast series. I'm also a grateful recovered alcoholic, and today we get to talk with one of our new amazing men's staff members who, hey listen, if you stay in the program long enough, you have a blessing of being able to witness people recover, and I feel like I've had that privilege with Chris, so I'm really excited to talk today and have him share his story. So, Chris, why don't you go ahead, introduce yourself, your sobriety date, and what brought you to recovery?
Sure. Yeah. Well, my name is Chris Marzano. I'm a recovered alcoholic. My sobriety date is July 19th, 2021. And, you've heard some of my story in meetings, but it was a long journey getting to a place where I was willing to do the things required to get sober. Mm-hmm. So I'd be happy to tell you a little bit about what it was like, what happened, and what it's like now.
Yeah.
So I had a decently good upbringing, a little bit of a tumultuous relationship with my parents, but I started drinking when I was really young, about 13 years old. 14 was when I started experiencing consequences from my drinking. Got arrested for being intoxicated at school.
Wow.
Yeah, I got sent to an alternative school, and the problems piled on from there, but one of the things that I experienced, and I know this isn't the experience of every alcoholic, but because I started drinking so young, I had this belief that all the people that were pointing out the truth of my drinking were just squares.
Yep.
They were just trying to stop the party. My parents didn't want me having a good time. I thought they were boring, and they just didn't get it. And I don't know. I held on to that belief up until really my 20s.
Absolutely.
You couldn't really tell me anything.
No.
I thought that any authority figure that was trying to help me was just trying to put me down or stop me from having a good time.
Yeah.
But it talks about in the big book, it says to the alcoholic, their alcoholic life becomes the only normal one. So throughout my time in high school, I was constantly getting in trouble for going to parties, for drinking, for stealing liquor from my parents. Mm-hmm. And it seemed normal to me, that's who I surrounded myself with as well. I was around people that were drinking like me, and it really wasn't until I think I'll fast forward a little bit and then go back. I remember being about 21, and I got my first big boy job, and I was in an office, and there were about 300 people that worked with me, and I had this realization that, oh wow, these people don't drink like me. There's maybe 10, 20 people that will go out to the bars with me at this job, but everyone else is going to the gym, having families, interacting with their family, not breaking the law. Mm-hmm. So yeah, for a long time, it just seemed like this is just what you do.
Everyone does.
Yeah, this is just the way life goes. An experience that I've had, and I've heard that many other people have had, is where I first started going to meetings, the message was not, and I don't know if it was me and the way I took it, or if it was genuinely that the message was different, but the things I was hearing were just don't drink, meeting makers make it, put the plug in the jug, don't drink no matter what, and that was my understanding of what AA was.
And you're what kind of life is that?
Yeah. I was this sounds miserable. I'm just going to have to hold my breath for the rest of my life, and I'm not going to be able to drink when I get married, or I'm not going to have...
Why is that always the first thought? I can't drink at my wedding?
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I think that's just the obsession, I wanted to be like normal people
Right.
so bad. Because, I talked about how my life seemed like the only normal one, but there was still that part of me that felt like an outsider, no matter where I went. In school, in sports, in my friend group, I felt like all these people understood life in a way that I didn't. Like, they got the playbook, and it just missed me. So, I held on to things like that. Like, oh, yeah, I want to be able to have a wedding and drink at it. And I want to be able to, go to work meet, whatever it was, So, anyway, I had this impression at a very early age that AA was a bunch of old men smoking cigarettes that were angry at their wives, and they just didn't drink.
Yeah.
And I really didn't know much about the steps. I thought it was kind of like an optional thing, or maybe something that after you'd been sober for 5 years you would be completed with them. As it goes with us, things progressed and got worse, and in my 20s, I struggled with some outside issues that exacerbated the truths and consequences of my drinking. To leave out most of the messy details, I found myself at 23 years old entering into my 11th treatment center. After being in detox 7 times, going to jail 5 times, that dream of being like other people and of being normal seemed like it was out the window.
Yeah.
I mean, it was gone by then. I'm sure many people that listen to this that are alcoholic will relate, but I could hardly stand going to get groceries or going out to eat. I just assumed everybody knew. Everyone must know how much of a failure I am, all the horrible things that I've done to, support my alcoholism and my drinking and to keep my lifestyle going. I just wore it on me like this big, heavy coat anywhere I went. I tried 2 or 3 times kind of half-heartedly to get sober before that 11th treatment center.
Did you work the steps or have a sponsor or?
Yeah, I did the 1, 2, 3 shuffle thing a lot. I would get a sponsor. I would meet with them for an hour, talk about 1, 2, and 3, tell them I've done this before. Let's just move on to the 4th step. They would tell me to go and start writing my 4th step. I wouldn't do it. A couple weeks would go by, and I'd be embarrassed because I hadn't called him, and I'd be like, all right, I got to get a new sponsor. My sober house is going to kick me out, So no, I had never done it. Actually, in treatment a couple of times I had written inventories. It's kind of embarrassing now, but my first time ever writing an inventory, I was 18, and I was the youngest guy in the treatment center, and I wanted to fit in. And I remember lying about a bunch of stuff that had not happened to me on my inventory because I was like, these guys need to think I'm hard. They need to think I'm cool. So I tried doing an inventory like that. Obviously didn't work. I've also, another time in treatment, I wrote an inventory and I was like, okay, I wasn't really in a place where I was trying to like lie to people to impress them, but now I had some things happen to me that I didn't want anyone to know about. Things that were really, really shameful that I had done, and I left those out. But for the most part, actually working the program, pretty much non-existent outside of, treatment centers telling me to do On Awakening in the morning, and I'd have to do it, or the 1, 2, 3 shuffle.
Yeah.
But, when I was saying that I got to that 11th treatment center and I kind of had an experience trying to get sober, I had tried enough to where it was evident to me that I would make these big decisions and commitments about the things I'm going to change in my life, and then at some point in the future, it would appear to me that I changed my mind. And that's how I looked at it. I really thought like, oh, well, I changed my mind. I wanted to be sober, but now I don't.
Right. I was making the choice.
Right. To go and get drunk.
Yep.
And, now I think we both know, like that choice was being made for me.
Right.
I was not changing my mind. I was dealing with an obsession that was out of my control.
Yeah.
Are you an alcoholic in recovery? At the Magdalen House, we host 12-step recovery meetings 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Whether you're newly sober and wondering where to begin, or you've been in recovery for a while and are looking for other alcoholics to connect with, we hope you join us. You can find our meeting schedule and other fellowship opportunities at magdalenhouse.org/meetings.
And so I get to this, this 11th treatment center, and at this point, I mean, I'm shooken up. I'm scared. I had just come off of, through some of the outside issues I was dealing with, and my drinking. I'd gotten in a decent amount of legal trouble, gotten wrapped up in the wrong crowd. I'd been homeless for a couple of months. I'd been in the hospital 4 times that year, and 2 of those times my heart had stopped and I had to get shocked back. So, I show up at this treatment center and I am terrified. It is evident to me that, I am powerless over alcohol and my life is extremely unmanageable. And I knew it was going to happen again. I was like, it's just a matter of time before after I get to this treatment center that I'm going to change my mind again. And because I still thought that's how it worked. And I'm going to go and I'm going to leave this treatment center and I'm going to go get drunk again and it'll all start. And, I don't think that fear was necessarily such a bad thing. I think that was me starting to actually get what step 1 means.
Totally. I mean, it's like in the book, it says fear will sober you for a bit.
Right. But it wasn't the fear that got me sober.
That kept you. Yeah.
Because to me, for a long time, what step 1 I thought meant was I drink too much, and I'm probably going to keep drinking forever, and that was it. And that is a gist of step 1. But what it meant to me this time was, I'm physically ill. I have an allergy to this substance, to this alcohol that I put in my body, and on top of that, I will continuously make the decision that I want to be sober, and no matter how badly I want to be sober, I'm going to get drunk again. And I always thought it was like a trick when they would tell you about step 1 in meetings. I thought they were saying like, oh yeah, you're powerless, you're, for lack of a better term, you're screwed.
Right.
I thought it was like, there's a caveat. But if you do this thing, like you're not actually screwed. But this time what step 1 meant to me was like, no, like this is going to be your life and you're going to do this forever. And like still to this day, like it would suggest that I'm going to get drunk again, short of divine intervention, short of a power greater than me stepping in and changing my life. And that put me in a place where I was ready for someone else to just like take the wheel,
Right.
Like tell me what to do. Like tell me which shoe do I put on first? What should I wear today? Like, do I talk now? Should I just be silent for like a month? Like whatever they would tell me to do, I was ready to do it because I saw that like I was unable to manage that decision.
It was almost a relief of that I don't have to manage my life on my own.
Yeah. So that, that's a really hard place to get to though.
Yeah.
And I've got a lot of people that I love dearly in my life that have not had that experience and have had way worse circumstances than me. So I don't know. I don't think that it's required that you experience DUIs or jail or homelessness to have that, because if you look at all the recovered alcoholics, you see people that never really lost it all and like got desperate enough. They had that feeling inside.
Right.
The unmanageability was real enough for them that they were able to have that willingness. And then you see people that, have the worst consequences.
3 DWIs in jail 12 times.
Right.
Like, I know. It's like the external consequences are terrible and we don't like them.
Yeah.
But for me, what really brought me in here was like those internal consequences.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's, that was what some of that fear was for me.
Yeah.
Was the fear of being out of control, mixed with all the shame and the depression and the loneliness. But, I just had to know that like I could not control this thing anymore, that it was going to take me in whatever direction it wanted to. I remember I had a really, and I share this frequently, you've probably heard me say this at the meeting that we go to, but I had a really powerful experience with steps 2 and 3 this time around, that I think this was a pivotal moment in my sobriety. So I'd gotten into treatment. I had actually gotten a scholarship to a long-term facility. And the reason I'd gotten that is because I had been to basically every treatment center in the city that I was living in, and I had reached out again, and this guy was like, no, man, like, we're not going to let you come to our treatment center. You need to go to this place because we're not helping you. So he had written a letter for me, and I had to write some stuff to get this scholarship, which I'm extremely grateful for. I mean, the place I went to, saved my life. They gave me the space to work the 12 steps. But I'm sitting in this other facility waiting to find out what's going to happen, if I'm going to be homeless, if I'm going to go to jail or what. And this gentleman sits down with me and he says, Chris, if God could talk to you, if there's a God and God could talk to you, what do you think he'd tell you? And I gave him this laundry list of things that God would probably tell me I need to do. And I think they were like, I need to start going to meetings. I need to stop lying to my family. I need to treat people with kindness. I need to stay sober. I should probably do my nightlies every night and actually meditate and finish a 4-step. All good things, things that I definitely needed to be doing if I was going to work a program of recovery. But when I finished giving him this list of stuff, he looked at me and he was like, man, I feel so bad for you. And I was like, what? Like, why do you...
I just gave you all the right answers.
Yeah, man. Like, what do you mean you feel bad for me? And I was confused. I was like, I thought I said some good stuff.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, what if there's a power out there greater than you that told you, like, I love you and I'm proud of you and I care about you and I don't care if you get sober today or if you get drunk for the rest of your life, my love for you is never going to change or waver and I'll always want a relationship with you. And I was so raw and sensitive. I started crying and it hit me that like those feelings, I equated those feelings with like peace of mind and happiness and contentment. And I had never had that since before I started drinking.
Right.
I just felt uncomfortable in my skin. I didn't feel like I fit. I thought, man, how wonderful would it be to feel like that, to feel like there's a thing out there that loves me and it's just okay with me.
Unconditionally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, in the big book, it says, God doesn't make too hard of terms of anyone that seek him. And really having a conception isn't even a question in step 2. But for me, that conversation, I believed that man had that experience. I could see it in his eyes that he felt that way about himself. And I wanted that. And he told me that the way he built that relationship was through working the 12 steps.
Yeah.
So, I was in this place where my ideas aren't working. I see that this guy has something that I want. And I was willing to make a decision that I'm going to do what that guy did because my life is so messed up anyway. What's the worst that can happen? Worst thing that can happen at this point is I do all this stuff and it doesn't work.
Right.
And then I'm back to where I'm at right now. So, yeah, it was I don't know if it was a white light spiritual experience, but it was definitely the moment where I decided, like, okay, I'm going to try the 12 steps.
Right.
I'm going to see what it does. If it works, great. If it doesn't, then oh well.
The problem is
it
works.
Yeah. And I mean, here we are, talking. That was 2.5 years ago.
Yeah.
And I do have that
yeah.
today. I do believe those things about myself. And I don't think I could describe to you what my higher power is.
Right.
I no more than I could when I first started, but I can tell you I've felt it.
You feel it.
Yeah. It was an experiential thing. I was one of the guys that was very... one of my coworkers likes to reference this. I was very violently anti-religious. I was very opposed to there being some loving power outside of me. I thought it just sounded mystical and silly, so that was a big deal for me to get to a place where I was open to considering that maybe I don't know everything.
Gosh, so humbling, right?
Yeah, because another thing that was really cool, and I think a lot of people when they come to treatment get shown this, and if you haven't seen it, I encourage you to look it up or get with someone that has. But I was shown the cycle and Stickman.
Yep.
So by the time I had that conversation, I'd been shown this diagram that showed me my illness, these 2 parts, the body and the mind, and I could see that my mind would tell me things like, well, it's just one beer, It doesn't matter that you just got out of jail for crashing a stolen vehicle drunk into the side of a hotel. You can just have a beer.
Yeah, just one.
Just one. Yeah. Or it would tell me, like, you still have insurance. If it gets bad, you can just go back to rehab. But I had just gotten kicked out of a rehab that I'd been to 3 times and had started drinking immediately. So I had this clear visual that my mind lies to me.
Right.
And maybe I'm not seeing reality for what it is.
Yep.
And with that humility came the ability to be like, all right, let's try out some other ideas. Let's see what some other people have to offer me. And I was told the way you work step 2 is by going to meetings and looking for people that have had an experience.
Yep.
And that was enough for me because I could see that. You can see it in someone's eyes when they've recovered, that they have happiness and peace and serenity. I didn't know about the whole, spirit of the universe thing yet, but I knew something was going on in these rooms now. Now, the next thing after step 3, I mentioned that my understanding of just go to the meetings and like the fellowship is going to keep you sober.
Yeah.
And like, just don't drink. It's a firm commitment to put the plug in the jug. Well, I was shown this time around that the solution in this book is the work, and the fellowship is a part of that work, but it's this whole thing, right? The unity, service, recovery. Prior, I really only knew about unity. Go to make some friends, maybe get a girlfriend,
right?
Hang
new
out.
Relationship.
Yeah, new relationship, new job.
Yep.
All the feel good things.
New car, new things.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I was shown that it's really these 3 pillars in recovery that are really important. And then in order for me to have an experience, I got to do all of it. And, I did it. And I think the moment when I first kind of had a feeling that like, okay, the drink problem might be gone, was when I did step 5. I wrote a really, really thorough inventory this time around. But I mean, I've had sponsees that are, I got one sponsee that's a nurse, and he had 60-something people on his inventory, and he's working these long shifts and getting off work, and he has to like cut out an hour or 2 out of his day each day. Yeah. To, like sit down and write. But, when you understand step 1 for what it is, that stuff becomes a lot easier to do.
Totally.
Because there is no job and there is no family for me with drinking.
Right. If I don't do this inventory, like now understanding my step 1, if I don't do this inventory, everything else I have will be non-existent anyway.
Yeah, it'll be gone. Or it won't be gone, but I'll be so miserable it wouldn't even matter if it's there because I'll just I'll just wish for the end.
Totally.
So I did this inventory, and after step 5, my sponsor, my first sponsor, he didn't really give me a lot of instructions about the power hour, but he said, you need to go back to where you're staying. You need to get quiet for an hour. And I have ADHD, and I was really worried that I would be like bouncing all over the place. So the plan I came up for was like, okay, well, I'm going to spend about 11 to 12 minutes on each step, just considering it. And I'll go one by one. Considered step 1, definitely real for me. Considered step 2, I realized a lot of my prejudices had begun to fall away by this point. Step 3, I realized so far my decision to go through the rest of the work and to seek God's will is like I'm doing it to the best of my ability. Step 4, I realized that there was a piece of sex inventory that I had forgotten to write and that I needed to get with that. And then step 5, I realized I told this guy everything. And it just kind of hit me. And I was like, this is the first time in my life that I have actually seen something through to this point where I'm actually doing it. I'm not lying to him about the step work. I'm not keeping anything back. I don't have any reservations.
You're like, what is going on?
And I just remember feeling like maybe something's going to be different this time.
Yeah.
I didn't know what all that meant. I didn't know that meant that the obsession to drink was going to be removed from me, and that I was going to know a new freedom and a new happiness, and that I was going to watch a fellowship grow up around me. But I knew I was like on the precipice of something kind of cool. And then the moment after that, I've had a couple of these experiences in recovery where like I knew some big things were going on, was amends. You hear the 9-step promises a lot in meetings.
And you're like, I want those.
Yeah. Where's that at? Like,
Where can I get that?
Well, it comes when you do step 9, which I'd never done before. And like many people, I would hear them read in meetings and be like, I go to 7 meetings a week and I don't have any of that. But it's because I had never, and it says before we were halfway through. So I had made a couple before I really had that feeling of like, oh, whoa, this is what this is like. So I had made a couple of my amends, and I got to one where, so my family, just a little backstory, I was adopted at birth, and my mother that adopted me she walked out on me and my father when I was about 14. So, I had a good upbringing socioeconomically, but our family life was really tumultuous. And with my grandfather, in my mind, no one told me to feel like this, but in my mind, I thought, well, I'm just the alcoholic non-blood grandchild that's not actually part of the family, and no one in my adoptive family suffers from this disease. I think it is a lot of genetics.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, he must hate me for all the things I've done to my family, you know, the fights I've gotten in with my father. So I hadn't talked to him in years. I hadn't told him anything about my life. I was ashamed. I wouldn't go to family functions. And I went to go make this amends to him. And in my mind, I was like, you know, he's 94. He does not understand. You know, he probably thinks it's like willpower. You just need to pull yourself up by the bootstraps, which I had tried.
Right.
You know, I had been trying. And I went to make these amends, and he shocked me. You know, I go into the whole, like, this harmed you, and, you know, please tell me if I've left anything out. And he knows all of it. He's like, yeah, well, I'm really glad you went to that treatment center. I was like, you know, I was in treatment? And he was like, and I'm glad you're working the 12 steps. You know, sometimes in life, son, we have things that come up that we can't handle on our own, so we need to ask for help. And I'm so proud of you for getting the help you need. And I know that you didn't choose this for yourself. And I mean, he's saying the opposite of things
what
that
you
I've,
expected
for like my whole adult life.
Yeah.
I had believed these things that he thought about me, and I was wrong. I left, and I was in my car. I was back in my hometown driving over to my dad's house, and I just started crying, and I was like, oh my God. It was all just a lie. Like, and I saw not just that relationship, but like all the feelings that I had throughout my addiction. This feeling of like, I'm separate from you. Or this shame about my past. It was almost like I saw it as if, and I'm not really like a ghost and goblin guy, but it was like a dark entity had put a cloud over me.
Absolutely.
And wouldn't let me see reality for what it was.
Like, that is what my disease of alcoholism in the mind is.
Yeah.
That's what it looks like. It is a liar.
So it's a fog over the truth that tells me, like, you're not good enough. You're never going to be. These people don't like you. This is what this person's thinking about you, you know. You're never going to get better. You're never going to find freedom. And I was shocked. I was like, wow, none of that stuff was true. You know, like, that stuff was just in my head. And through taking some actions to address some of these things, I was able to clear it away.
Right. And get the truth.
And get the truth of what it is. And the truth is, like, you know, like, yes, I'm a selfish, self-centered alcoholic, but, like, I'm also really sick.
Yeah.
You know, I was really sick for a really long time. And I really like the quote that, like, we're not bad people trying to get good. We're sick people trying to get well. How freeing that was to, like, not only know that, because I'd heard things like that before, but to really experience it and see, like, I've genuinely been sick. And thank God that God helped me, that my higher power stepped in and helped me with this. So, you know, that was the moment. That was kind of, and I don't know if it was like white light either, but I mean, it was definitely a big
Definitely
day.
a spiritual experience.
Yeah. And those feelings haven't really gone away.
Yeah.
You know,
and continue to grow upon those.
Yeah.
And experience more and have new spiritual experiences that just make that feel deeper.
Right.
Yeah.
That's another thing that's really cool about recovery, that it's hard to kind of, because, you know, sponsees will ask, like, well, when am I going to have this experience?
Right.
When is this going to happen? My experience of good feelings was like a cool thing would happen for me, and I'd get really pumped up for like a couple hours or a day, and I'd be like, this is amazing. I got a new car, I got a new job, you know, new relationship. This event worked out in my favor. And I'd be on this high, and then it would always go away. So I think I expected that's what the spiritual experience was going to be like.
Totally.
I was like, okay, I'm gonna hit a plateau, and then it's going to go back to normal. But the reality is, like, my life has gotten hard since that moment with my grandpa.
Yeah.
But the way I view reality has not changed in the face of hard moments.
Yeah.
So I haven't been in this euphoric state of, like, life is so beautiful, I just want to hug everybody. But I've been able to see things for what they are, and there's such freedom with that. You know?
Yeah, I'm like over here and I'm like, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, you know.
You can go through hard things with a shift in perspective and a peace of mind that I think I was always searching for in alcohol.
Yeah.
Or other people.
Yes.
Humans.
Yes, I'm very much like that.
And it's coming from within now.
Oh, and I think it's important to also note that, like, you know, I'm being very sentimental about my experience, my journey, and sharing a lot about the, you know, how great it is, but, you know, we don't get washed white as snow like immediately. You know, I still have character defects that like get me in trouble and
Same.
cause problems in my life. And I still want people to like me.
Oh, yeah.
You know, but the difference is, and I'm going to steal a line from a guy that I really respect that worked at the treatment center I went to. He would say, like, the way we lived our lives before was ineffectively. We lived ineffective lives. And what we've been given is a way of life that actually works.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so in the face of chaos or calamity, I can find serenity through living life effectively by practicing these principles. Whether that's just the principle or it's doing the 10th step,
the action
or
behind
the amends,
it,
or, you know, reaching out and being of service. So things that used to be catastrophes no longer have to be that. And I'll get a little vulnerable here. So I had mentioned that I had gotten in some legal trouble. So prior to me getting sober, you know, struggling with a lot of outside issues, drinking a lot, I had made a friend of a friend who was doing a lot of illegal stuff. And I was invited to go hang out at his apartment with my buddy. And I didn't know this guy. I barely knew him. I think I'd known him for about a week. And the police raided the apartment. I got charged with all of it. And I'm telling you all this because in that moment, I believed my life was over.
Absolutely.
I was like, this is the worst thing that could ever happen to me. And this is so unfair
Mm-hmm.
because I'm not even doing this stuff that they're charging me with. I'm not even the one that's breaking the law. I'm just here. How could this happen to me? Like, I must be cursed. My life is over. And, you know, it talks about in the book, like, we were at the jumping off place. We couldn't imagine life with alcohol or without it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine life at all going forward from this moment. But I got sober. You know, I went through treatment. I got a job. I got back in school. My life got good. Got a new relationship. You know, all the beautiful things happened for me. And then one day, it was actually the month that I picked up my 2 years sober, I got contacted from my attorney, and he was like, they've filed the charges. So here I am, 2 years sober, now facing a significant amount of prison time.
Wow.
And this is another one of those spiritual experiences where I knew God was working in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Because prior to getting sober, there were about 3 months after that arrest where I didn't want to live. I made attempts on that, you know, because I couldn't see any way out. Fast forward 2 years working a spiritual program, I am terrified. But the craziest thing, I don't quit my job. I continue to go to the meetings that I'm at. I'm not talking about it to everybody. It's not like every waking thought is about this. I'm sleeping normally. I'm meeting with sponsees. Like, life continued. And I had this experience where I was like, wow, this is what step 3 is about. Where it's, step 3 prayer, God,
Right.
I offer myself to you to build with me and to do with me as you will. Relieve
Said it
me of
this
the bondage
morning.
of self, that I may better do thy will. The bondage of myself, to an extent, was removed from me. I
Right.
still had the fear. I still had the uncomfortability, the racing thoughts every once in a while. But because I think I was seeking to, for the most part, do what I could to be in alignment with God's will, in the moments where I was doing that stuff, those feelings subsided a little bit.
It didn't have control over
No.
you.
Didn't have control. You know, still very hard and very tough, but it didn't have control over me.
Right.
And I had the thought, I was like, this is what they mean when they say, matching calamity with serenity.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean it's not going to be hard and scary and tough, but it does mean I'll be able to walk through it and still be of service and be useful to the people around me. You know, by the grace of God, I had tons of people write me letters, you being one of them, for the court. And, you know, I was able to get probation when I really shouldn't have. You know, they could have, I would have made sense if they wanted to give me something harsher. But it's crazy how the things that we think are the worst things to ever happen to us can end up being so great. And you see it all the time with people coming into treatment saying, I'm getting a divorce. You know, I'm losing my kids.
And they can't fathom life after that.
Yeah, a person that I love has died.
Yeah.
And it's these horrible, horrible events, and you just can't picture life after that. But the way God works is just incredible, you know. Because all of those things allow us to be of service to people. I mean, you know, you've talked about all the times you got DUIs, and, you know, all the things you did while you were drinking, and so many women can just hear your story, you know. And I've had the experience where and it's super cool, you know, where a guy has come up to me and been like, I did that same thing.
Right.
You know, I got kicked out of high school when I was 14 for being intoxicated, or hey, my family dynamics look like yours. And it's maybe 1 out of every 200, 300, 400 people.
Right.
but you get to see, like, I wasn't going through all this hard stuff for nothing.
For nothing.
Yeah.
And isn't that ironic that we so badly, it's like we want to be unique and special and different, and it's like, you're not that special and different, but my story can, your story, someone's story can uniquely qualify them to help somebody that I couldn't, or you couldn't, or, you know, and like, that is what's so cool, that our negatives are turned into purpose.
Yeah. No, it's amazing. And, you know, I'm so grateful for the purpose that I have in my life today.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, to step out of the scope of just alcoholism and just look at the human experience, you look at suicide rates of people after they retire. Right. You know, because you spend your whole life working, never finding where you fit in this world, and then you find yourself empty. And, like, I truly believe that I'm blessed to be an alcoholic today because I was forced into seeing what God wanted for me, you know, through desperation and through having to work this program. I was given a gift of a place in life. That's a cool thing.
I love that.
Yeah. You know, you're like plucked from this horror and placed in a life full of, like, purpose, meaning, and value. That we all look for, you know, like everyone. It's the human condition to want a life of value. And that's just like an additive, you know, to like all these great things that we get through sobriety. I heard a guy say something the other day. He said, man, I truly believe I could do anything I want in the world. I just don't know if God wants me to do that. I share that sentiment.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, you know what? Like, the doors of life are not closed to me, but I don't know what my higher power wants for me to do, you know?
Almost like I want what God wants for me more than what I want for myself.
Most of the time, you know? It's still hard.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you know, I still find myself, like, wrestling with him a little bit.
Totally.
And my sponsor, who you know well, my sponsor was telling me, like, that's not always such a bad thing to, like, wrestle with God a little bit. You know, to say, like, I want my relationship to look like this. I want my job and my career to look like this. And then you get the experience of, like, getting what you want sometimes, and it's not always all that great. And you're like, okay, all right, God, I see you. Yeah. You know, like, I see that you're guiding me with things. And I get the opportunity to, like, recommit, you know, on a daily basis with my surrender. Also, I just want to make it abundantly clear, because, you know, I'm just so happy to talk to you about this stuff, but really I do not do this perfectly.
I was just saying that this morning in a meeting.
Yeah.
I'm like, I absolutely do not do this perfectly.
Not even close. I'm sure there are plenty of people that know me that could be like, oh, let me tell you some things that Chris has done that are not perfect. And, you know, I think the thing that has, like, saved me and kept me grounded is you know, there's like 3 pillars, but most importantly, like, seeking. And it says in the big book too, like, it's not about finding God, it's about seeking him. And even through times where I've, like, struggled with dishonesty and selfishness in my sobriety, like, I've never stopped wanting that relationship and desiring that thing that gentleman talked to me about when I first got sober. Yeah. You know, I think it's important to say that, because when I first was getting sober, I was really worried that, like, I would hear people talk that are in a position that you or I am in now, where they've got, like, a year or two, and they'd sound like they're saints. Right. And I'd be like, oh, how can I
like, how can I live up to that?
How can I ever do that? And that's not, like, what the big book is telling. You know, it says we are not saints. Right. You know, it's progress rather than perfection. And a gentleman that I was talking to, you know, one of our overnight volunteers, man, he was such a cool guy. He was telling me, he was like, you know, sometimes I'll have these character defects that I really want gone, like, really badly. I just see that it's not helping me, and I'm working steps 6 and 7, and I'm praying, and I'm asking God to take it away, and then I fall on my face and make a fool out of myself. And sometimes I have to ask, like, well, you know, maybe God was using me for something there. Maybe my defect or something that I'm falling short in is meant to be an example to someone else of what not to do. Yep. And that's humbling. Yep. You know, because I'd love to be the guy that everyone's like, that guy's crushing it. But
He's perfect.
Yeah, Mr. Perfect.
Yeah.
But sometimes I can be just as helpful by like making a fool out of myself.
Yeah.
And someone
being like, I do not want that.
I don't want that in my life, But more times than not, I haven't had to experience that too much. You know? And when I do, it's it's not the end of the world.
No, I feel like it's also a lesson for me of like it just makes that defect even more objectionable.
Right.
Yeah. So it's like even though the experience may be negative, I deem it negative, good still comes from it. Like that is the freedom of that perspective shift.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. So, Chris, we just love having you here. I'm so excited. Are you so excited for the men's program?
Yeah, it's amazing. There's nothing like this available in Dallas right now.
It's so crazy.
And we've got such a good group of guys at the house right now.
Yeah.
The perfect crew to kick it off.
Mm-hmm.
Guys that like really want something new with their lives.
It's really cool to see.
No, I'm pumped. I've told you a couple of times, like this is my favorite job that I've had thus far. I'm only a couple weeks in, so I don't know. We'll see. But so far, everyone here is just so nice, and it's really great to be in an environment with people that you can tell are like genuinely invested in doing good in the world. There are good people everywhere, but it is like a microcosm. It's a bubble here at the Magdalen House of people that just like love each other and like want well for the clients. Yeah. And that's refreshing.
So refreshing. Like I love coming here every day.
Yes.
Love it. So if there's a man or a woman or anyone listening right now who may be feeling lost or lonely or confused or struggling, what is one thing that you would like to leave them with?
Well, there's a part in the big book that says, burn into the consciousness of every man and woman that no matter what, they can recover. And I want you guys to know that. That, there is nothing in this world, as long as you're still alive, that is going to stop you from being able to have this experience. It's open to anybody. Rarely have we seen a person fail who's thoroughly followed this path. And like, it is, getting sober is, like they frequently say, simple but not easy. Man, like I hope people know that like it can get better. It can get better, and I've seen it happen for so many people that I care about. Miracles do happen in sobriety, but it does take some work. Yeah, nothing worth having in life comes super easy. So
you took the words right out of my head. That's literally what came to my mind. Yeah. So true. Thank you so much, Chris, for sitting and talking with us.
Of course.
Really enjoyed it. All right, guys. If you know any man out there who's struggling with alcoholism, you can give us a call here at the Magdalen House. Our men's program is now open and running. First Step, Next Step, Community, all of it. And of course, our women's program is still going strong. So I hope y'all enjoyed this episode and you have a great rest of the week, and we will catch you on the next episode. Bye.
All right. Bye, y'all.
This has been Recovered, Interviews with Alcoholics, hosted by Brent Hansen and brought to you by the Magdalen House. I'm Kelsey Amos, host of our Recover Ed podcast series. We hope you've enjoyed this podcast. Tune in every first and third Wednesday for a new release from one of our 3 podcast series. To learn more about the Magdalen House and the services we offer, visit magdalenhouse.org or follow us on your favorite social media channels by searching for the Magdalen House.